CLR Bruce Rivers. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, man. Excited to be doing this. We get to break it down and get a professional's opinion about what's really going on with this O'Block indictment.
It's huge.
It is huge. It is huge. I was surprised. A lot of murders don't get solved in Chicago. The way it happened, it kind of seemed like this one was a little different because of where it happened and everything, but it was surprising, to say the least. So I thought, we'd start off by going through the indictment a little bit.
Sure.
It's kind of vague in there, so, I was thinking maybe you can explain why it's so vague and everything for us.
Well, indictments generally don't spell out a lot of facts. They basically just, show what the crime is and who committed it. So, and in this case, there are 7 counts. The chief count among them is the first one, and it's charged out in a RICO, and that's the Corrupt Organizations Act, created back in the 30s to combat the mob. So essentially what they're saying is that this O'Block gang is acting as an organization for a criminal purpose.
Okay, wouldn't that be any gang, though?
Well, one could argue that it's too broad, for sure. But I mean, if you and I, and let's say my son Michael, let's say the 3 of us get together, and we call ourselves the White Boys, and we're off, and our whole purpose is to commit crimes, drugs and murders, which is what they're accused of here. Well, then it fits within that statute. The organization has to be designed for a criminal purpose, not for some other purpose. So, like I'm in a motorcycle club called Street Legal. It's a bunch of lawyers. Yeah, we're a group. We're organized, but we're not organized for a criminal purpose.
So anything organized for a criminal purpose can be charged under the RICO.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. It has to fit within the definition of an organization. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay. In one of the press conferences, they said they were able to establish evidence that there was a racketeering enterprise involved, and this murder was done to further that.
Correct. And let me tell you this: it's not done without snitches.
Okay, we can get into all that a little bit later. So 5 people are being charged. I think everybody knows their names. I mean, we don't got to read them off. They list crimes that O'Block is accused of doing, which I believe, from what you was telling me right now, kind of ties into the RICO. So they're accused of 7 different counts.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in the indictment, I don't see any evidence.
Well, you don't have to spell out what the evidence is. So because this is charged by indictment. Okay, so that means they went before a grand jury and they present the evidence to the grand jury. And then the grand jury decides whether there's probable cause or not. And in this case, they said there was probable cause. So then all they do is just list out what the charges are. And there's some allegations in here with some facts, but they're very general in nature. And that's how most indictments are, if not all of them.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, the government's not going to give anything up that they don't have to until they absolutely have to. So in many aspects, you don't even have to give your witness statements, called Jenks material, until 3 days before trial. And the rule used to be that you didn't have to give it until just before cross-examination.
So a witness statement, those would be people that are snitching.
Well, people, anybody that's given any information about the case that they intend to call as a witness.
Gotcha.
It's trial by ambush.
Wow. And they don't have to legally give that up till 3 days before the trial starts.
Right. And so the general practice for each individual U.S. attorney is different. I guarantee you, on a case like this, they're not going to divulge who their snitches are until the very, 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 very last minute. Because look what happened to FBG Duck. He was gunned down in the middle of the street, in broad daylight. So, and because it's such a high profile, because it's such a gang case, anybody that would be cooperating is going to be a target for sure.
Okay. Now there is one piece of evidence that they've released, and that is a dude by the name of Los. A week before the murder, he bought a car, and then right after the murder, he returned the car. About 45 minutes after the murder. And they say they have video of the car in the area where the murder took place, and I guess they got a picture of him at the dealership or something like that. Have you seen that?
That I'm not aware of, but it seems to me that he's trying to use that as kind of a cover. In other words, you drive around in that car, it's not going to be registered to the person who's driving it at that particular point because it's too soon, right? And so, I don't want the car, and you ditch it, and then so it goes back. But it's not going to be that hard to track that down. I mean, the problem that we have in today's society about getting away with a crime is there's fucking cameras everywhere, just everywhere. And so you capture a license plate or whatever, and everything's got a digital footprint, you know. You get a license plate number, you got this. You can track where everything goes, regardless of what it is, and whether it's a purchase at a store or whether it's a car. And so it's not surprising that they came up with this evidence.
His lawyer is trying to argue that there's no proof he was at the place of the murder or that he was around this car that much. Is that any type of good argument?
That's his only argument. The problem is that he returned the car. If he just let somebody borrow the car, and then pop, and then they gave it back to him, and then he still owned the car, he'd have a better argument. But it looks like a straw purchase kind of thing, where you're just using it for this transaction and then returning it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or at least that's going to be the government's argument on that. And then just to further that scenario, if he in fact did that, knowing what its intended purpose was, he's on the hook for the conspiracy just like everybody else, and he could be looking at life.
Oh, you mean even if he wasn't directly involved in it?
No. A conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime and then an overt act in furtherance of that. Okay? So if I say I'm going to go kill so-and-so and I need your car to do it, and I know that what you're going to be doing, I'm part of the conspiracy. And me giving you the car, the conspiracy is now completed whether you kill that guy or not.
I see. Okay. How does something like this turn from just a regular case that the police are investigating, because it really seems like some normal gang violence, and now it becomes federal?
Well, I think one of the things you got, all these prosecutions, no matter whether they're local or federal, are all political, right? The district attorney is an elected person. The U.S. attorney is an appointed person, but they're still political offices. And you've got a situation in Chicago right now where there's murder after murder after murder happening, and it doesn't strike me odd. In fact, I know there's this investigation and a much broader investigation about guns and shipping them up from Atlanta. It's and it's it goes across state lines. This whole gang thing is, especially on the O'Block, and is a matter of federal concern. So the feds have stepped in, and they've got all kinds of investigations going on.